and today's going to be on using 3D processing for denture relines. I'm really excited for this one. It's kind of the meat and potatoes of how the Simplest product line works, and it's going to really show you how you can adapt it easily into your practice and integrate it without any issues whatsoever. So without further ado, I'll pass this off to Dr. Bertsch.
Thank you so much, Daniel. So yeah, it's the last lecture before we break for summer holidays, which I'm so excited about. I feel like I'm in elementary school again, ready to get going. So today we're gonna talk about the 3D process for denture reline. So it's really nice to kind of end the summer series or spring series with this, in my opinion, because we've talked about Simplest, talked about partials, and the last lecture was on immediate dentures and my process for those. So we kind of ended with the recalls. So I do the 24-hour recall, the 1-week recall, and then we book the patient in for the 3-month reline. Because as you know, with the immediate dentures, everything's going to shrink and change. So then kind of picks up nicely there. So then the patient comes in for their reline with their immediate denture. So we'll have some cases about that later. Obviously at home today, not at work. That's the Titanic behind me, which I'm obsessed with. So that's very cool. Like Daniel said, steps away from a patio. So this is the kind of roadmap where we've been and where we are. So it's so exciting. Can't believe we are on the last one. Let's talk about relines. Just want to thank everyone for tuning in and supporting us. This is fantastic and so exciting. So the denture reline, so overview, we're going to talk about denture relines, materials, step-by-step process, go over some cases, pivoting when necessary because I've had to do that recently. Our iTero was down, so I had to go not all the way back, but kind of my step before digital dentures. So I kind of want to present that just so that sometimes it can be frustrating if the scanner is not working or if the scanner is down. So I wanted to offer a solution for in those times, and then troubleshooting common denture issues. That I could have gone on and done a whole lecture on itself, but I kind of just stayed to 2 main things that I experienced. So with relines in particular. So I'm going to start with the disclaimer because I feel like I never talked about this with the immediate dentures. Kind of was rushing at the end there. So first of all, with our immediate dentures, the price of the reline is built into the total cost of the denture. So when patients come in for an immediate denture consult, the price they're given includes this step. So includes everything we're going to talk about today. So I believe we've upped the price $500 for immediates for an upper 500 and 500 for a lower. So $1,000 extra total for a set. And that was because I used to break it up and then charge patients for the reline. But then there'd be a lot of patients who are frustrated and who didn't want to pay their bill because they feel like they should have a good denture that they're happy with, despite everything I would have said leading up to it, that they'll need the reline because I always talk about it. So instead of having those conversations again and again, we just built into the price, which I would highly recommend for anybody doing immediate dentures. Just build the cost of the Simplest reline into the cost of the immediate denture. So then it's a nice seamless process for the patient, and they pay one bill and then they set it and forget it. And then they feel like they're getting a free denture. That's what they call them. Not my words, because it's not free, and I explained to them too at the consult, like we built this cost into the denture, but and then I restated it again, but just having paid it and then getting a final denture, it's just made a world of difference. And I don't have any more complaints or issues with patients not wanting to pay their bills. So, and by then the bill's paid. Okay, so between the 1-week recall and then the 3-month reline of an immediate denture, back in the day when I was doing traditional dentures, I would do the tissue conditioning, I'd do Linol, I'd do temporary reline, that type of thing. And it was a lot of chair time and it was a lot of frustration because especially with Linol, where they need to keep the material moist or wet, patients weren't doing that. The whole denture concept is new to them. And so they're just trying to learn with the denture, trying to learn to live with the denture. And then it was just a nightmare. They were coming in frequently This has been like 4 years now that I haven't done it, but I remember it was at least every few weeks, it seemed like once a week maybe, that they're coming in to get the line all redone. So of course that takes up a lot of chair time, especially already with the appointments leading up to the denture. So I have eliminated those appointments, eliminated the temporary relines. If a denture is really by chance, I've had a few where the digital denture, when we deliver it, is just awful. Some of the, like before I was taking pictures, some of the dentures would come back and they looked just atrocious. And so anyways, we would do something quicker and sooner for the patient, reline it using this simplest system, getting them a new denture made right away, so that their healing period, they at least had something they were comfortable in. But for the most part, now that I'm taking pictures, and sorry to keep referencing last month's lecture, but really worth a watch because that's goes into a lot of depth on my immediate denture process. So so yeah, so a couple reasons why I don't do it. Setting patient expectations. So I want patients to understand that they're not going to go from their teeth to a denture and have this smooth, beautiful transition and it's going to be perfect, because it's not going to be perfect. I want them to get used to the denture. So I found that that's helped a lot. Chair time, patient management, I've already kind of touched on that. And then the biggest reason too is that I do a lot of two-phase immediate dentures. So where we extract the posterior teeth, let that heal for 6 weeks, and then get the denture made. So at the posterior there, it's often stable enough that they can use denture adhesive to help keep the denture in place while the front heals. The anterior heals there. Oh, I don't know what to do about the echoing. Sorry. I'm really not good with technology. Maybe come closer. Okay, so where are they going? Oh yeah, so two-phase immediate dentures, and the posterior is stable, so they can use denture adhesives there. And then especially with perio patients and patients, kind of going back to that setting expectations, like I don't want people to think their denture is gonna be perfect and like super retentive, because that's a rare situation based on a lot of factors, including anatomy and surface area. So if the patient has periodontal disease and all their teeth are blowing in the wind, when you extract those teeth, of course, there's going to be no ridge left. So for that patient to expect to have really retentive denture where they don't need denture adhesive or implants is unrealistic, in my opinion. So having them use denture adhesive right away gets them used to it, so that once we do the reline and they need less of it, they're appreciative of it and they like understand that they might need denture adhesive to help hold it in. So which so it might make me a monster, but that's kind of how I've done it, and I've been doing it for 3 years now, and it's been really good. The other thing too is with the digital dentures, I find it such a true form and capture of the soft tissue that we aren't needing to do a bunch of adjustments as they're healing, compared to when I would do alginate and custom trays. The borders would overextend, and different, like it just seemed like way more sore spots, versus now it's much less and not much of a thing at all. So that's kind of a disclaimer why somebody had asked about tissue conditioning and temporary relines. So I've just kind of eliminated it from my practice, other than a case-by-case basis. If somebody's really struggling or the denture is not working, obviously we're going to do something about it. But generally, we've been having a lot of success, so that's what we do. All right, so we'll jump right into it. So we're just going to pick up at the 3-month post-op immediate denture. This is most commonly when I do relines. So that's what this patient looks like at that 3-month mark. And there's his denture. At one point we were doing 2 dentures, but I stopped that because then you have 2 immediate dentures, and then it's, now that we're doing the simplest reline, they would have 3 dentures because they have the 2 immediates, which don't fit very well in there, we're going to wear, and then the new one. So it's better, in my opinion, just to do the 1 denture and then do the reline digitally. This is me checking border movements. So I place the denture when the patient first comes in at that 3-month mark. ask them if they have any sore spots, and then I place the denture. You can see how it's quite loose. And then I do border molding movements, and anywhere that when I pull down, if it dislodges the denture, it's overextended. So then I would adjust that and reduce it. I also check, and when I'm doing that, making sure there's enough space that the material can flow over. So at least 1 millimeter or 2 for that. Leaving that space, because if there's no space for the material to flow over, you're not going to get a good reline of the denture. So you can see how loose it is. He's been using denture adhesive up until this point. And like I said, it's a whole process of setting expectations and talking to the patient. So up to this point, he's been aware, he knows what's going on and why it's happening. So the one thing I'll say is that with the digital dentures, I find that we're not getting that extension of the flanges into the vestibule where it's digging in as much, and we need to adjust it. I find that with digital dentures, after we extract the teeth and everything heals at this 3-month mark, it's rare that it's overextended. And it's rare, like that a patient comes back because it's overextended. And I find it's just because it captures the vestibule really nicely and then leaves space for that reline. So, and then, yeah, I just keep repeating this process until the denture isn't moving in his mouth before we proceed. So this is the materials I use. I know I've shown them a few times, but this is a close-up of the border molding material that I use. So it's tack, there's the description there and the code. So that's from the website from the supplier that we purchased from. And then the tray adhesive I put on the denture before doing the reline impression because I use the PVS. And so yeah, this is my favorite. It's like body PVS. It flows really nicely, offers enough working time that we have enough time to place the denture, remove the excess from the back of the throat, do our border molding movements, and then let it set up. So that's the stuff I encourage. It's orange, so obviously not aesthetic. Some patients will wear it for the week until they get their new denture. Most don't. I'm looking at changing into a different type of material. That's a lot. It's more aesthetic. It's pink, but it's a multi-step thing. So I just haven't done the investment yet. So this is where we're at this point. This is my denture adjustment kit. Again, I had a question on this. So this is awesome because then I can bulk up the presentation. So this is my favorite. I've been using this one since graduating. I really like the pear-shaped one because it's so beautifully like trims the acrylic. And then you have 3 different polishers there, which is really nice to just chair side polish and smooth out the denture before giving it back to the patient. And I just polish it under the sink with running water, just so we keep it nice and clean and don't get a lot of buildup of the debris. So this is the tack material, the border material. So I really like it because it goes, once you heat it up, and I just use a torch and I just go slowly, and once you heat it up, it turns translucent. So that's on the right hand side there of the denture. And then once it's ready, it turns opaque again. So that left hand side. So obviously leave it in the mouth until it turns that opaque color. I used to take it out too soon, and then of course it distorts what you just captured. So keep it in the mouth till it goes opaque, and then you can take it out. And the nice thing with this too is that you can add onto it. And the green stuff we used in dental school, like whenever you added, you could tell where you added, where this, it's very difficult to tell where you added. And it's a seamless transition all the way around. So it's a lot more user-friendly, easier to use. And quicker too. It's doesn't flake off or break off like the green stuff would. And as well, if you use this and you take your impression and you need to take another one, the PVS rips out, that stuff doesn't come off in the denture, and you're not having to repeat your border molding movements. So that's what I recommend, and that's what I use. And I haven't used a green stick in years, and I don't plan to ever go back. Okay, so this is my assistant filling the denture tray. We have some really quality videos today. And it's just to show you our process. So I always get them to fill the ridge, but the integrity of the ridge, the palate, and then just kind of scoop it up or over the denture like that. So this denture, we obviously didn't do any border molding. We didn't need to, but we'll capture the denture there. And then the next one is a 3-minute video, and I'll let it play because it's me doing a reline. And you can see all the steps. I'll explain how we do it because actually one of my assistants in Kindersley, Rebecca, taught me this technique from a dentist she used to work with, and I really like it. So I'm gonna try. Oh, there we go. Mute it. So camera head's 10 pounds. Keep that in mind. And we start with cheek retractors, get the patient's cheeks out of the way, and then we get the patient to hold those. And then we dry all the tissues off, air dry and gauze. Rather uncomfortable for them. And also I explain everything before we do it to the patient. We're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. So they're aware of it. So yeah, and then what I'll do next is take the light body material and put it directly around the vestibule of the patient while the assistant, Stacia, is filling the denture like in the previous video. So I don't do it in this video, unfortunately, but I'll dispense the material around the patient into the depth of the vestibule, and then I'll take an air water and just take air, lightly blow the air just to thin out the material. And then this is why the light body or the slow set's nice, because it gives us more time. But so yeah, and then I just put my finger there. I'm always holding it on the palate, and then I scoop at the back of the throat first. And then once that's all clear, we take off those retractors, let the patient just rest at that point. And then we do our border molding movements. And I can't remember if I said this earlier, but before we do any of this, when I was doing that first video of the border movements, always make sure there's space for the frenums, because oftentimes with the digital dentures, the immediate denture, the frenum space isn't as nice as you'd want it. So make sure you just kind of cut a notch in the denture before doing this reline. Setting, which we all know what that looks like. I clean it out a little bit more, and then we take it out, and then yeah, that's what it looks like. So yeah, that's how we do all our relines, and I've really been happy with the result. We get such a nice roll over the borders of the flange, and a really good result once we scan. So there's the denture there after I've trimmed it, and ready to be scanned. This is my Reline denture checklist, so everything I look for. So I want a nice even layer of material. Oftentimes I look for areas of burn through, but just small areas and kind of like in a tripod formation if possible. But if there's no burn through, it's like meaning the denture doesn't touch the tissues anywhere. And so I find that a little suspicious. So I'll take a perio probe and I'll just poke at random spots on the denture and just measure and see. Because if there's one place that has 5 millimeters of material and another that has 1, I'm guessing it wasn't seated properly. So at that point, I'll put the denture back in the patient's mouth, get them to bite down. And I've always checked the bite before we do the reline to see where it's at. So then I can compare it to after the reline. So once it's reline, put it back in the patient's mouth, check the bite, check that it feels normal to them as far as that goes. You want no air bubbles or voids. Small little ones I sometimes will fill with wax, depending on where they are. But no significant areas of burn through. We don't want like the whole thing burned through, because that just won't work. And obviously no material torn or tearing away. And then after that, we're trim it up and then get ready to scan. So that is the reline process for me. After that, we scan the denture, request any changes. So at this point, if the patient wanted larger teeth, if the patient wanted a whiter teeth, a different shade, sometimes if the teeth are worn out in the back, then we can get those new molars put in, stuff like that. Whatever you discuss with the patient and want, then you can have it done with the lab script, and I just put it on the iTero. And then it's like into the simplest system. So it's back to the very beginning. So it's like circles becoming circles. So the very beginning, we talked about the simplest denture to make a brand new denture. So this is how we do our relines as well. Basically the same process. The patient gets to keep their denture. We're not sending their denture off. Again, me in rural community could be gone for up to a week. The patient's without their teeth. So doing this and integrating this digital workflow, the patient gets to keep their denture, and then they get a new one that's going to fit better and be that reline. So just reintroducing, bringing back the simplest, and reminding everyone of that workflow in regards to the relines. So I'll go over scanning tips again, just because that's an important thing. And I don't know if people are watching all the videos or just this one. Also, I've been doing a lot of CE myself, and I find it that I watch everybody on like 1.5, 1.7 speed. So I'm curious what people watch me on. So anyways, so remove the denture from the patient's mouth. You want to make the disable AI cleanup with the upgrade in the iTero. You don't need to do that anymore. As soon as you select denture on the prescription form, then it automatically does that. So then it's able to capture all the soft tissues and the denture. And otherwise, it's just you just hold the screen once you start doing the scanning, and then it'll give you the option. Ensure the denture is dry. You want to scan in a continuous motion so that it captures everything and just rolls it around really nicely. And if the scan's not perfect, there can be some areas where it's missing and that can be patched in, but you don't want large areas of missing information. And then again, you want that 360-degree image of the denture in the scan. So a lot of people have been coming to me with issues they've been having with scanning. And so these are the issues I've had in the past. So this is how I've addressed them. So the biggest one is that if the scanner seems to be working and it's just not picking up, oftentimes the scanning sleeve, that little window, can be smeared or have a scratch in it or something like that. And it's crazy how much of a difference it makes. So I either clean it, but oftentimes I just get a new sleeve, put a new one on, and then we're rocking and rolling. So you'll see in the scanning window on the iTero or whatever scanner you have, if it looks blurry, then put a new scanning sleeve on. That's the number one issue we have. If something's not picking up, or if one of the assistants gets me because the scanner isn't working, that's what's going on. The other thing is if the scanner's glitching and you're trying to scan something, I say just stop, load it and see, because sometimes it might have captured it but doesn't show that it does. I don't know why, but so yeah, load it up and see, and if it shows up, perfect. If not, sometimes I have just gone and restarted, because the other thing too with the iTero is that it's taking images over images. It's going to distort what you finally want. So like if you're doing like a crown prep and you're taking a lot of scans, your accuracy is going to be shot because it has so many more images layered on top of images. So same with dentures. If it's not working, then I just restart sometimes. So, and then the other thing is we use our iTero a lot with Invisalign and lab work. So we need to call frequently, it seems like every few months, to get the iTero team to like clear the database. So they'll do that for us, and then that helps a lot too. So okay, so this is I only have a few cases today. This is Arnie, and so yeah, we'll reline his immediate denture. There's a couple of issues with it, so it's quite loose and needed some aesthetic improvements. You might recognize this denture. It's made a few appearances. So the midline was off, and he wanted bigger teeth. So in this image here, you can't really see his teeth too much, so he wanted them to be more visible, which I agree with. So this is all I did was I drew the midline in, we did the reline, and then I sent pictures of Arnie to the lab with his denture in, and the bottom denture is the denture that we got back. So the point of that is that there's simple ways to correct things that makes such a big difference, like the aesthetics and the size and shape of the teeth. You don't need to pick the teeth out yourself. I never picked out those teeth. I never gave any more guidance than patients want larger teeth and sent a picture so that they knew what he looked like. So, and then this is just showing the PIP paste after we put the denture in. So we've scanned that denture and then got the green one, or sorry, the one with the PIP paste back. Arnie wanted to wear the reline all week, so that was kind of easy for us. So you can see how when you apply the PIP paste, there's all the brush lines, and then when you place it, you want it to look like this, where it's made contact with the tissues, and then kind of smooth, distorted, I guess. So on the very, very top of the palate, there's those lines, but everywhere else you can see it's made intimate contact with the tissue. So I find it does a really good job capturing all that detail with the scanner. So there's this final smile. Yeah, I'm really happy with it. He was really happy with it. The midline's much better, and the size and shape of the teeth I'm much happier with. So yeah. So then this is using Simplus. You can see the scan. Couldn't find the scan for Arnie again. That might have been cleared in the swipe. But there's the border molding we've done, and then we've done the wash reline impression. And then here's the iTero scan of the denture with the reline in it. And this one right at the incisal pupil is the hardest area to capture with the scanner. And I haven't figured out a trick for that other than just kind of maneuvering the wand as much as I can to get it in place. So yeah, and there's the final denture, the reline denture, ready for delivery. Okay, so this is the end of the reline part, and then we're just going to switch gears and talk about pivoting when necessary. And like I said, our iTero was down recently, so I had to kind of go back. And then in this case that we're going to talk about, I wasn't able to capture that area in front of the incisal papilla, so it was just like so frustrating. So we had to do the technique that I did before digital dentures, which is like a 3D matrix. So point of this is I just want to show you guys a different way to do it. Because I've heard of denture replicating machines or whatever that you use with alginate, but I've never seen one and we don't have one. So this is the process I use so that I can still keep it to as minimal appointments as possible. How do you remove all the tack before you give it back to the patient? We just break it off. It comes off fairly easy. Not going to lie to you, the assistants do that, but yeah, they don't have a problem taking it off. So we just take out the reline impression and then wipe it with a little bit of alcohol to get the glue off, and then the tack comes off with that. So this is Dwight. So he came in, he's a farmer, seeding season, wants a new denture. So time's of the essence, drives at least an hour and a half to come see us. And so the iTero was down and out. So this is where you can see that we couldn't capture those areas. And I really, really wish we could have, because the rest of the scan was good. There we go. So it's kind of the setup that we use. So it's the reflection putty. And so we take out. So for this one, we did the reline already. And then as it shows in the scan, it wasn't working. So I did a putty of the reline denture and then a putty of the regular denture. And sent both to the lab with a bite registration. So you take equal parts of the putty, the base and the catalyst, mix them together, pack them into the denture case, and then a light spraying of PAM on the denture, air thin it, and then when you place the denture in the case, and then another light area of PAM, and then air dry it again. I literally slipped off my chair and the chair flew across because I got PAM all over the chair by accident. So careful where you're spraying the PAM. And then then you mix up the base and catalyst and then push it on the top. So I'll have a picture that better shows it coming up. So right here, so that's what the denture looks like going in. And then you just take that other blob of putty and pack it around into the ridge around the whole denture, make sure that it's got all the detail that we need, and then you let it set up. And it's super important to have the PAM between the layers, because if not, you have to cut the denture out, and then it just defeats the whole purpose because it looks like a massacre. So that's what it looks like. So the there's a video. So there's the try-in. This try-in came in all pink. So when I do this technique, I will do a try-in just to make sure we can do another wash impression. I just wasn't confident to send it into production. So we got those, the wash impression back, or sorry, the try-in back, and then did a wash impression. So yeah, that's the workflow there. Kind of everything I already went through. And then once it's set up, give the patient their denture back, and then they're good to go. So there's his before and after. He was so happy with his denture, really excited, and really happy with the results. And again, so it was just taking the putty impressions, sending pictures to the lab. The picture that you see there is the one we sent to the lab, and then that's what we got back. And it's just incredible, the result, and how happy he was with it. So again, just kind of focusing on how simple it can be. So this is troubleshooting. So oftentimes with the traditional reline, I don't have this so much with the simplest, but it is something that can happen, especially when you're doing the border molding and then the wash impression. You can get the borders being too thick, or more importantly, too long. So then what that looks like is that when the patient opens, the denture falls loose. So if a patient, you deliver your reline and then the patient opens and the denture is falling out, the way to solve that is again doing those border molding movements, pulling on the cheeks and then seeing where it's too long, applying the PIP paste, doing that border molding movement, and then adjusting it until it's no longer burning through and no longer falling out for the patient. And then again, it can be also interference with the coronoid process of the mandible, or the distal flange. So for that, you place a finger in the anterior of the teeth and have the patient protrude the mandible, move it side to side, and feel the movement of the denture. And you can do that with PIP paste. And then anywhere that's burned through, that's where you're going to adjust. So like I said, there's so many different things we could talk about. That could be a whole lecture, but that's kind of the ones I chose to focus on for this one because it's the most common ones I experience with doing relines. Another case I just kind of wanted to touch base on again was the Nathan. So we talked about him in the immediate denture lecture, and I hadn't delivered his reline denture at that point, his final reline denture. So with him, he had with his immediate dentures, he only contacted on the 7s. So he had this really large open bite. It was like 4 or 5 millimeters. So he was a patient who had 2 dentures back when we did that. So we adjusted the heck out of the one so that he could bite properly. So then when I sent the reline in, I asked for them to close the open bite. And again, this is with 4 pictures. So this is his reline denture, and it was so long and big that he couldn't even open his mouth. Like this is like him cranked open. It was so large. And you can see him there smiling. You just see the whole denture. So he was actually laughing because it was ridiculous. So anyways, that to solve that, what we did was we sent these pictures into the lab, and then I drew the lip line on the dentures, him at rest, and then sent that picture in as well as that information to the lab. And then this was his final denture. So that's him smiling on the bottom. And then the smaller pictures, him just at rest, showing that there's leeway space. So easily corrected. Oh, I just noticed you could see me in the sunglasses. So that's just a wrap on that case because it was a really frustrating one for a time there. And then this is just the last thing we'll talk about, and it's how creative you can be with dentures, which is part of the reason I love doing them. So this lady's the mayor of Bertsch. She knew she needed an immediate denture, but she's lived with these teeth forever. She wanted the denture to look as close as possible to her natural dentition. So sent the scans, sent the pictures in, and it's a shame I didn't take better pictures, but you can kind of see there just with what's exposed under the lip that they got the crowding right and as close to her natural teeth as possible, and she was really happy with it. So we're done a little early today, which is fine. I have my email there because I know people have had questions and been reaching out through Joel and everything, which is fantastic. But I figured this way, if people want to ask me anything directly, that's my email there, and I'd be happy to help. So why might a max denture patient be struggling with S sounds at delivery? The S sounds, I think, if I remember correctly, it's because the teeth are set too far forward. So then just look at where the maxillary teeth are set.
Well, perfect. So thank you very much, Dr. Bertsch. Did a great job of explaining kind of the processes of the reline. And, one of the big advantages of doing the reline with the Simplus is that the patient gets to keep that denture. So they're not going about a couple days without their denture, especially if you're living in a rural area where they don't like to come back and forth for that. So great option there. We'll open it up for question and answers. I know a few people have put them in already, but we'll see if anyone has any more. And while we're waiting for that, I'll also remind everyone that at the end of the webinar, I'll put up a few QR codes. One will be for the Orem Group's webinar page. We've got a few other webinars. If you've enjoyed this, we have some on implant series as well as a high performance office series. So lots of different options for you there. I will also put up a code for a survey that once completed, you'll be able to get your CE points for the course. So.
Sorry, just to further answer the S sound question, I'm just referencing my little handy dandy book. So yeah, it says the median groove of the tongue is too deep, so the maxillary teeth are set too far labial, so forward, or insufficient denture base material on the lingual of maxillary anterior teeth. The other possible cause is posterior teeth set too far lingual or denture base material too prominent, causing median groove to deepen. So right out of the textbook. Oh. Could you repeat the name of the border molding wax substitute? Oh, I'll just go to that slide. Nope. So that's the material there. I sometimes have problems scanning the outside palate. Yeah, for that one, what I do when I'm scanning the outside palate, I wish I had a denture to pretend, but I'll start on the occlusal surface and just like scoop underneath the palate and go back up in one fluid motion and then do it again, always picking up at the occlusal surface of the teeth and then scanning down to the other occlusal surface of the teeth, and then starting at the very back. So when you've done the reline and have the material, I'm just trying to find a picture. So like here where you have Oh, here, this will be good. So, oh, I thought it'd spin around. So there, where it has the material on the back, just kind of the rough edges at the very posterior of the denture. So I'll start there scanning, scan from the 7 all along 7, and then moving my way forward in a motion like this. And then that's how I capture it, because otherwise it is a challenging area for sure.
Any more questions at all? Well, don't see any more coming in. So perhaps at this point, I might take control of the screen here and put up those QR codes. As well, if there are any questions, feel free to contact myself, Daniel M at orumgroup.com, and I'll be happy to help you out as well.
And yeah, feel free to email me too.
All right, so this first QR code here is for the survey for the CE points. I'll leave that up for a little bit here. And now we'll move on to the Orem events page. So again, on this page, you'll be able to find all our other webinars, as well as the 3 previous webinars of this series. I highly encourage everyone to go back through and watch them. Really gives you a full outline of how to really integrate digital dentures into your system. We're finding great success with it, and I know that everyone on this call can find that success too. All right, well, I'll stop sharing here. Thank you, Dr. Bertsch, for this, and thank you for everyone for attending. We really appreciate it, and I'm glad we're able to get off at a good time as well, and we're able to enjoy what's left of the evening. Thank you, and we'll hope to see you again for our next one.
Thank you so much. See you, Daniel.
Thank you. See you.